What's up, everybody? Welcome to another dope episode, 77 Flavors of Chicago.
I'm Sarah.
Dario.
Very cold.
Yeah, very cold. Got trivia for you today, or it's more so kind of like a
Fun fact.
Fun fact. Did you know that there were at one point 80 community areas?
Really?
Yes. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
We'll talk more about it a little bit later.
Wow.
But right now, if you see behind us, you can see we're in front of the Chicago Pile 1, which is the first sustained nuclear reaction. Self-sustained nuclear reaction.
That's really cool. I knew it was here, but I didn't know we were going to walk right by it.
Yeah,
so.
right. But if you could, please like, subscribe, follow all social media, 77
Share.
Flavors Shy. Check out the new website, 77flavorshy.com. Also, go ahead, subscribe to this right now.
And share it. Send it to someone you like.
77 Flavors Chicago, right now.
Let's get it.
Yo, welcome back. That was a pretty interesting fact.
That was
80?
I didn't know that.
Yeah, most people didn't realize. It didn't last for long, though. It didn't last for long. And as you know, we, 77 Flavors of Chicago, we've done all 77 community areas.
Yep.
We talked about the history.
Yep.
We ate some food there. But over this journey, we really wanted to realize the origin of why there are 77 community areas.
Yeah.
And
Who else
better than the University of Chicago? We found that out
we found
out. Yeah, we found out while we were doing the podcast over the last 77 weeks that what it was, and now here we are. We feel like we wanted to pull up on them and find out.
Not like that. Not like.
Yeah, not in a violent way.
We sent emails.
We wanted to pull up for sure.
They know we're.
So we're about to talk to two people that can tell us all about University of Chicago and give us a history lesson on the 77 flavors of Chicago. Let's go.
I'm Tess. I'm the Assistant Director for Chicago Studies, and I'm also a lifelong Chicagoan. So that helps with the job.
That's why we hired her.
The line that got you. Oh, she's in.
And I'm Chris Strabel. I'm the Assistant Dean of the College and the Executive Director of Chicago Studies and Experiential Learning.
Okay.
Cool. What is the Chicago Studies Department?
Yeah.
So we actually aren't a department. We're this kind of weird unit that sits in the office of the Dean of the Undergraduate College. So all 7,600 undergrads at the University of Chicago. We're part of what's called the Office of Research and Teaching Innovations. And that office is broadly about, sort of promoting creative ways to study and learn while you're here at the university. Our focus is on kind of helping all the different disciplines to think about the ways that the questions and the theories that they have kind of map onto and can be enriched by engaging with the city.
Oh, wow. So that's a very important,
really cool.
Yeah, that's huge.
It's a really cool gig, I gotta say,
Kind of like behind the scenes, you like the...
Very much so.
How can whatever you're studying affect the city or be affected by the city?
Bingo. And I think actually if you think about the history of the University of Chicago, that duality has been really important at various points. It's been harder for the academy to remember one or the other of those two poles, but what we're trying to do right now is make sure that dialogue is open and free-flowing and rich and frankly easy, because if you think about a typical student schedule, it's a lot easier to do most of your research online. If you're a faculty member, it's a lot easier to stay at the level of books and theories, but to really actively engage the city and to really listen to the city and let it teach you and criticize you and raise hard questions about the field that you're teaching, that's a lot more work. So a lot of what we do is about making it easier. Tess may be a little bit more on the student-facing side with sort of co-curricular stuff that we do that engages students in just thinking about the city. And then my work tends to be a little bit more with faculty and departments, thinking about the way that classes and disciplines more broadly can engage and be informed by the city.
That's a very good like pairing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like honestly, that's like, because you got the student side of it, and you got the faculty. How do we come together? Because that's always been my struggle.
Yeah.
I never trusted the teachers. So if I had somebody to speak for me.
And the dirty little secret there really is that, like, frequently as not, it is the students and the students' interest and their questions that kind of leads where the classes go. So we're offering a class we've never offered before this quarter. It's about researching historic Chicago. And in parallel to it, we're doing a research project that we're leading that's looking in very great detail at the history of 55th Street, so right near the campus. And to our surprise, like, students voted with their feet and they filled the class, and they also filled the research project. And I was like, well, that's because everybody in the research project is taking the class. There's one student in common between those two groups, which means that the students are really interested in it. And that's data that I can take back to different departments and be like, hey, there's an interest.
There's an interest.
Do this more often. But we also have a lot of faculty who choose to teach classes because they themselves are really engaged Chicagoans. They just have an interest, or they're working with a nonprofit, or they've got a connection in the city. And sometimes what we're doing there is like giving them permission to geek out about the city they love, even though their published research is focused in Cambodia or, you know, some other part of the world. This is a global institution. People think about lots of big stuff. But
I used to, this school is like, I'm from Jordan, and I grew up in Jordan, right?
Oh, wow.
And then I moved here for college, and I went to ISU. But I used to lie to my friends when I was younger and tell them my dad went to the University of Chicago. That's how much the school has had an impact on my life. He went to Southern Illinois, not the University of Chicago. But I used to tell people, I was like, yeah, my dad, he went to the University of Chicago for engineering. He did. But yeah.
We have engineering, molecular engineering or something.
No, he's a
very
civil
esoteric.
engineer. Nothing to do with that.
Yeah.
No, for sure.
Yeah. So you were talking about like the importance of, you know, what University of Chicago is doing and like the connection to the people and vice versa, right? Which kind of brings me to the start of University of Chicago, which is kind of like been like that from the start. In 1909, we know that's when the university started. John D. Rockefeller gave $600,000 for this building to kind of be started. But this wasn't the first one. This wasn't the first one. Can you tell us anything about that? I just found that out like literally like a little while ago.
It's actually a really interesting story. So the old University of Chicago was founded by Stephen Douglas, the little giant, right? Abraham Lincoln's rival and ardent segregationist and defender of the slave trade.
Yeah.
And so Douglas had this kind of like very early urban planning vision, right? He bought a plot of land that's over at like the end of 39th, right near where they built that new bike path that goes over the lakefront trail. So he owned a plot of land over there, and he like set it up with some like cool townhouses on one side, and he had his own little plot of land. But in order to make that like a destination, it needed a couple of other things. First, it needed a commuter line to connect it to the city. So he used his influence with the Illinois legislature to get the Illinois Central Railroad, which is now electric, right, to run along the lakeshore, conveniently right next to the land that he already owned. Yeah. So he got a rail connection. That made it easy for commuters. And then it was just a matter of setting a stop there. No problem. So the second thing that he needed to give the place some like cachet, right? So part of that was setting up some parkland around there, but the other part was to put an institution of higher learning there, because like obviously you live in a serious place if you have a university, and if your university was the University of Chicago, so much more official, right? Obviously that was a center that people wanted to be close to. So Douglas was doing this in like the 1850s, and the university kind of got started. It was affiliated with the Baptist Church. And then pretty quickly, Douglas died not so long thereafter, and the financial backing just wasn't super solid. And so
foreclosed, right?
Yeah, and so fundamentally it was foreclosed on. You know, the Great Fire was probably what killed it in some ways. Not that the fire made it down to 39th Street, it didn't, but just all the money in the city of Chicago that could have gone to things like universities or parks or all of that got diverted to rebuilding the city and to downtown. And so that university closed. And then, it was about 10 years later, I think it was, that the idea came about to create a new University of Chicago. What's funny is in many ways, it's the same urban planning blueprint. Like around the time that Douglas was getting the first University of Chicago started, you had Paul Cornell, cousin of Ezra, who founded Cornell University. Paul Cornell had founded Hyde Park, the village of Hyde Park, which is where we're sitting today. And again, inspired by his good friend, Stephen Douglas, he was like, what I need is a rail stop, 53rd,
yeah.
7th, right? I need a rail stop. I need a park. Washington Park, Jackson Park, the Midway, all of that was designed to enhance the gravitas of the neighborhood. And I need a major academic institution.
Just play SimCity.
He just took it's exactly it. He just took the plot, and it was like, and then he started working to make it happen here. He brought in a pretty well-known up-and-coming educator, William Rainey Harper, to be the first president. Rainey Harper had some new ideas about education and the ways in which it should intersect with its surrounding communities. And so they founded a university here, which was originally just one building, Cobb Hall, that's next to us. And then they founded an extension for downtown, and that's now the Graham School of Continuing and Professional Studies. But kind of from the very beginning, the university had this idea that it was going to be an intellectual center. And the other thing that was kind of novel was that they were open to educating everyone. Women could enroll here, African Americans could enroll here. There were no limits on who could be a student here, which was pretty unusual in the time.
Yeah, that's a very interesting, because we talk over these 77 community areas that we discussed. We talk so much about the University of Chicago's role in kind of defining what, kind of people see Chicago is. You know what I mean? Like it's a big piece. And so when we thought about talking about this subject, we were like, we have to come to University of Chicago. Is there any like remnants of the old university around?
Because Douglas's personal wealth was so tied into the slave trade, the university has really, we have the name in common. I think at one point there were probably some volumes from the library of the first university that made their way here. For a period of time, there was a stone from one of the buildings at the old university that was embedded in a wall over on the other side of campus as sort of a connection. And actually that was removed a couple of years ago because the university, really, and I think, in the spirit of full disclosure, there's a group of graduate students and historians who have sort of argued that there is at least an implicit identity between the two institutions, and that imposes an obligation of reparations on the university. The university's kind of preeminent historian, who's also the dean of the college, John Boyer, he argues in his book that that's not the case, but I think it's still an open question. And, there are certainly plenty of things that the University of Chicago, in its role shaping the city, does need to answer for. We'll probably talk about some of those as we get into the community areas.
I really like the fact that the university kind of took that stance. You know what I mean? Because you can, perception is reality. And I used to hate that in retail. You know what I mean? When people are like, well, if you look mad, then you are a man. You know what I mean? Like, I'm like, no, I'm not. You know what I mean? As I'm mad. But when you think about this, you don't really think that there are two distinctions between old and new. You know what I mean? We know who Stephen Douglas was. We talked about him on the podcast. Mm-hmm. So to have that kind of, University of Chicago say, hey, let's kind of separate ourselves from that. We don't want that old hanging over us. I like that a lot.
I mean,
who wouldn't like right? Who wouldn't, right? As a black guy, all right.
They were like,
I'm on board with this. Let's talk about it. The 77 that started here with Chicago, University of Chicago. Like how
My first question is why?
Yeah, right. Why?
Like, why did they create the 77 community area?
Well, it was actually kind of a very there's a theoretical reason and there's a real practical reason. So practically speaking, and I think this is actually the reason that they've endured, the community areas were just kind of a nice way to aggregate statistical data about the city. And if you think about it, there's lots of other ways that we could do that. Wards, or sometimes folks will use things like zip codes or census blocks, but the boundaries of those things all change. Zip codes is terrifying. You don't realize it, but zip codes actually move.
Yeah.
And wards, I mean, we all know that ward boundaries change all the time,
That's
right?
a different conversation.
And they're weird. So, like, you definitely don't want to use wards. So, one of the real practical reasons was just as a way of dividing up a growing metropolitan area and kind of, standardizing the ways and through a collaborative agreement with the census, census data always conforms to those community area boundaries, which has made them kind of enduringly useful, even though the theoretical foundation for them has shifted a little bit. So that's the second part of it, right? The theory behind it. So urban sociology, the idea of like studying cities as a phenomenon in themselves and studying the ways that human beings build and destroy communities in the context of cities, that starts here at the University of Chicago. And it really starts with two figures, a guy named Robert Park, who got here in around 1914, I believe, and a guy named Ernest Burgess, who was a student of Park's and then became a professor here in 1916. These two guys, with an increasingly large group of former students and collaborators, kind of were among the first to take sociology, which had been this kind of philosophical, theoretical armchair discipline, and begin informing it with experience in the real world. And, the real world that they were conveniently exposed to was Chicago. It was right here. It was also super interesting to a lot of people around the world because it was this new city, right? It had burned to the ground not so long before. Right, exactly. And it had kind of come back up out of nothing. So there was this idea that like you could study a city almost from its beginning if you were looking at Chicago, but it was also convenient, right? So they started thinking about the ways that cities form and grow and develop. And they had this theory that human beings in cities would function a lot like other organisms, other animals and plants and so on, in kind of a Darwinian ecosystem. So they kind of thought that, well, just the way that different species are kind of struggling with one another in nature, so too human beings are like competing for scarce resources in an urban space. And if you let that play out over time, they felt like it was going to sort of naturally lead to the formation of these kind of natural areas that would evolve based on geographical features and transit lines and sort of where jobs were, and that was going to lead to the formation of sort of groupings. So the community areas is what happened when Burgess, who was kind of the maps guy, Burgess took all of these factors that they thought were important and he put them all on a kind of a multi-layered map. And he and his students in like 1923, 1924, they created what they called the Social Science Research Base Map of Chicago. And in that, they recognized what they felt were 75 natural areas that they sort of assumed that over time, human beings in the conditions of Chicago were going to kind of naturally form these 75 distinct subcommunities. They were overall in history mostly wrong, but it was still really convenient for aggregating statistical data, and so we keep using them. And then we start calling them neighborhoods, which they never were and never have been. You guys know the neighborhoods is a much more complex and much more on the ground phenomenon.
It's crazy to think that that's how they thought about people at that time.
Chicago grew so fast in the latter half of the 19th century. It was really, like 11-fold increase between, I think, 1850 and the fire.
Yeah.
And then after the fire, there was this massive building boom because, again, clean slate. That's a great story. If you haven't talked to Carl Smith yet about what happened in Chicago after the fire, that's a great conversation.
We got it on camera now. So.
Not only did the whole downtown burn down, but all the paperwork burned, which meant that there was this massive land grab.
So nobody had jurisdiction over anything.
Well, the only people who could get their land back was people who could document a claim. And guess what you needed to document a claim? Education, wealth, status, powerful friends who could vouch for you. So whole communities were erased. Like the Gold Coast kind of exists on land. We don't know who was there before.
Wow.
We think it was a group of like immigrants who were kind of eking out their existence as fishermen, but we don't know because Potter Palmer bought it right after the fire. There was nobody to contest his claim. He was Potter Palmer, so everybody was going to be like, yeah, totally.
Didn't he put in Lakeshore Drive as well?
He put in that conveniently. The city council decided right around the time he acquired that land, the city council came up with the idea of creating a pleasure promenade that would go right next to Potter Palmer's new land.
Oh, wow. Convenient.
It's crazy the way these things seem to keep happening.
These people are like the OG Nepo babies.
Yeah, it's totally true.
That's amazing. I feel like if George Streeter was around to hear this, he would hate it.
Right?
To claim his own state. and he was just a few years late.
I know, right? The timing was just a little bit off.
So Tess, how do you teach, like the students? Because you like the leader of them, right?
What I do I work in the co-curricular space, so a lot of what my job is getting students to just be curious about the city and hopefully go explore it. So a lot of times we tend to work with like orientation and like first and second years. So it's a pretty low barrier to entry is the goal. Like, hey, we're doing this cool thing, you should come. So it is like walk the path.
You do the bare minimum and you were hired because you're
low barrier to entry.
We'll put that on the bottom, don't worry.
Students. Low barrier.
Yeah. So things that they, can just show up, sign up the day before, and it's something fun happening on a Saturday, that sort of thing. So it could be an urban hike to do the Great Chicago Fire Walk, or we took them to the new Wild Mile, if you guys have been there yet. That's really cool, like the ecological floating river thing. So it's just a way to be like, no matter what you're interested in, Chicago has something cool going on, and you should go check it out.
And that's important. Because like Chicago get a bad rep for a lot of goofy stuff, you know what I mean? Like, and the fact that you can say, hey, look, no, let me show you what we have.
So much of like the value of this program is also like, for example, we had one student come here that we were doing a program in Lincoln Square.
Yeah.
And he was like, oh, my parents told me that it's really dangerous over there.
Lincoln Square?
It's how
Murr's Apothecary?
Yeah.
Yes, and we were like,
we invited his parents to come to town and do like a brewery tour with us.
Are you serious?
Wow.
It's just they have the wrong information. Like, of course, like once he was there, he was like, oh, like this area is great.
Pet store on every
yeah, exactly. So it's just about changing that narrative that sometimes students come in with just, they're young and the way the news talks about Chicago can be so negative. And so this is a really fun way to be like, you might be scared to go out and explore, but like come with a group and maybe meet some friends and meet a professor along the way who has some sort of expertise in this region or in this topic. So.
Or meet somebody who's not a professor, but is somebody from the community who knows stuff that folks at this place aren't going to know. And that's a key piece of what Tess does too.
I'm glad you said that, because I was just going to say, I would probably, if I was, it's hard for me, I'm from Chicago, but if I was an outsider looking in, I'd probably want to, all right, you've been here, all right, so tell me, I don't want to know what, like maybe a professor might is taught to tell me where to go, where have you been? You know what I mean? Like, so I think that's pretty cool. Like,
that's really cool.
And we always try to use trans along the way as well to be like, you can come here on your own on Saturday. But it is very funny taking students on the CTA for the first time. Like, truly, like, is this our stop?
Yeah.
And like, I will tell you when it's our stop, and we will all get off together.
And we'll be fine.
Where do you see, like, community engagement and the growth from the 77 coming from, going?
I think there's something instructive about the way we got community area number 77, which is Edgewater. So Edgewater had been considered just a part of Uptown in kind of the original 1920s formulation, but the people of Edgewater rose up and decided that they had a sufficiently different identity that they were able to actually persuade the powers that be that Edgewater was going to be its own community area. And I don't know a whole lot about that story, but I think that's kind of a cool thing, right? Because it's people who operating out of a, I suspect, completely different theory of the ways that human beings organize themselves in communities were able to kind of express their identity and change the way in which they were considered. I don't know that we're going to change the 77 framework all that much. There's now 100 years of history and 100 years of statistical aggregation. And if you do GIS work, you don't want the 77 to change because it just makes it complicated for what happens after, right? Like when they changed the names of the streets in 1909, it was a mess for a while there. But I think maybe moving the focus away from talking about these statistical aggregate units to thinking more about neighborhoods, to thinking more about communities, and to thinking about the ways that like lines of identity aren't necessarily as geographically bound in the city of Chicago. I think we've gotten ourselves into a lot of trouble by like looking at particular neighborhoods and grouping them a certain way and making value judgments based on things that in some cases are very accidental, as opposed to asking people how they understand themselves, what they think their community is about, who they consider to be their neighbors, and what they think their neighborhood is. I think if we take a more of a listening stance and a little bit less of a descriptive or proscriptive stance, especially from some imaginary objective position of expertise, and there's a lot of air quotes on that for you podcast listeners, I just feel like the more we listen and the less we talk about communities, the better we're going to do as a city, and the more chances we have to actually build authentic community among ourselves.
We don't have that ends right there. That's it. Yeah, that's it. I can see the trail off right there. I was like, that's it right there. Like that's that's the end of those.
That was one of my favorite interviews.
That was one of the best interviews that we done had. I feel like, and we talked about this, that it gave us some closure to, like this whole 77 weeks that we did, so it's really cool to kind of hear from University of Chicago what they were.
We literally could have talked to them for like another 2 hours.
Yeah.
Like, no joke.
Yeah, easily. I mean,
so much knowledge.
Actually, we did. We just
didn't.
We didn't. No. Anyway, right now we stand in front of the University of Chicago bookstore and cafe. I'm not about to eat college campus food.
No.
So let's head to the real restaurant.
We're so excited.
Let's get it.
It looks so good. Welcome to our food portion of the episode.
Buddy. Yeah, buddy.
Yeah, buddy. We are so excited. We are at Saucy. Why do I want to say Saucy? Saucy Porka in Hyde Park by the University of Chicago. And this restaurant was actually, the owner started as a food truck in 2011.
Oh, wow.
It wasn't called the Saucy Porka, but they started as a food truck. And the concept is it's a Vietnamese Latin fusion.
Okay.
So all the foods are a fusion of both. So when they started as banh mi sandwiches, which are like famous Vietnamese sandwiches, right? Staple food in Vietnamese cuisine. And Amy, who's the owner, and her husband, they started their food truck in 2011, and they were actually some of the first people that like set the ground for food trucks in Chicago. And
really?
Yeah, they started
pioneers.
They started this like organization that kind of like pushed legislation to allow food trucks. It was dope. And then in 2015 they opened up 2 different restaurants in the financial district. And then this is one of their more recent ones, is the Saucy Porka here in Hyde Park.
I'll tell you one cool thing about the Saucy Porka.
Tell us.
This is right next door to where I actually quit comedy.
The first time?
The first time. Yeah. The revival is actually right next door. 2017.
That's funny.
Is when I quit comedy.
And then he came
Then I
back
came back with
it.
a storm. Yeah, with a storm. So pretty cool location.
Yeah, that is dope. All right, so I'm gonna introduce a little bit of what we ordered. We ordered a variety of things. One thing that caught my eye when we were doing the research is the egg rolls. So
yes,
everything really is a fusion, but the egg rolls. Oops. We ordered 3 different kinds of egg rolls. They have a chorizo egg roll, a picadillo, which is like a ground beef.
Okay.
And then we got a vegetarian egg roll. Also, what's cool about this restaurant is they have vegan, vegetarian, gluten-free, and shellfish-free. Okay. So it is really shellfish-free. So it really, they try to accommodate as many dietary restrictions as they possibly can. So we got a vegetarian, picadillo and a chorizo egg roll, which I'm so excited to try. And then we got, these are tostones. Do you remember? We had them when we had Puerto Rican. They're like fried plantain chips.
I do remember, yeah.
Topped with pineapple salsa, and they're served with their aioli. Their aioli, yep. And then this bowl right here.
Show them that.
Hey, yeah. That's fully vegan, and what that is, it's fried soy ginger tofu in a rice. It's a rice bowl. It's like a Puerto Rican rice bowl.
Okay.
We got the banh mi sandwich, which is the starter. I'm just looking at so I can name them correctly. But the ropa vieja beef sandwich. We had ropa vieja in Miami. I don't know if you remember, but it's that kind of like a
vaguely
it's like
remember.
A brisket, like a pulled brisket kind of thing.
We had so much food in Miami. Oh my god.
I know we did, but look at that.
Yeah.
Can you see it?
Yeah.
There it is.
There you go.
That looks beautiful. And then they have these cool tacos in like, I don't know how to describe them, but they call them bacos. Look how cool that is. Look how cute. Can you see it?
Yeah, there you go.
That's so cute. And we ordered 3 different kinds. We ordered chicken, we ordered a vegetarian one, and then we got a pork.
Okay.
And then we got fries, and yeah.
Let's go crazy.
I want to try the egg rolls first.
Yeah, I'm diving into the egg roll. There's this sauce here too. Let's see what this egg roll is about.
Let's see what
you
this
get.
egg
You get
roll.
a few different sauces.
Yeah, so you get a few different sauces.
I think this is the. I don't care which one. We're about to split it up.
Yes, they're all cut in half. So, cheers.
Cheers. There you go. Let's go. I'm gonna dip it in that one.
That's the curry aioli.
What is this stuff?
You either have the chorizo or the ground beef.
So good. This aioli is going crazy. Oh my god. Which one do you get?
I got the vegetarian. It's like a cabbage, carrot. It's so good. Wow, that's amazing.
Oh my god. Okay, we're off to a good start. Off to a very good start. The flavor, to kind of describe it to you.
It's so crispy.
Yeah.
We had 2 different things, but mine is like has such a depth of flavor. It's spicy, but it's not. I can't tell if it's the actual egg roll or if the sauce is spicy.
I think it's a mixture of both. That's what I was going to say. It feels like a mixture of both. The aioli is just enough aioli to not be overbearing, and the flavors of the beef are fantastic.
I really want to try the sandwich.
Yeah, go ahead. Try the sandwich.
I love. It's so beautiful.
What is that, beef, you say?
Yeah, can you look at that?
Oh yeah, that's crazy. That's going crazy. You know what, let me try one of these bocas. Because, all right, so, oops. Is it good? It's fire? Oh man,
It's fire.
I can't wait to try it. So, if you look here, pretty good. No, it's good. I'm good. Yeah, I got it. So check it out. Look at the juices flowing out of that. Now, it's probably hard to tell, but this thing is like doughy, clay feel. Like it feels like putty. Let's try it out.
It's like a bao.
Oh,
Don't eat the whole thing because we got one of each.
this one right here. Oh my God.
Is it that good?
The sauces on the beef and the pork are amazing.
With the pineapple?
For campus food, this is great. This is campus food right here.
Wow, that's delicious.
Oh, yeah. Let me kill this.
Yeah. All right, let's try these fries.
That was amazing.
So the fries, they're called Crazy Monkey fries. They're cheesy.
Wow.
That is so good.
Is it?
Yeah, you gotta try those.
Oh, look at that pull. Look at that. Oh. What's going on here?
Yeah, that's fire.
The flavors are just...
It's like a mint. It's almost like a chutney of some sort, or a.
Hold on. Let me try the vegetarian.
Yeah, try
Try
it.
the vegetarian egg roll. Here we go. I don't know if you see it. Look at that. Yeah. Look at that. Beautiful. I'm gonna put it in this again too.
Oh, this has ground beef on it. The fries
Yeah.
too, and Chihuahua cheese. I want to try the one you have.
Oh wow.
I want to try a different sauce. Can you open one of the other sauces? This is their house-made crazy spicy sauce.
Oh.
Ooh, that smells amazing.
It's like funky. I don't know if I'm describing it right. Not nasty. Not nasty. Very
I think
different.
you're looking for the word is umami.
Oh, is that what it is? Okay. Umami. Okay.
It's that like deep layer of flavor.
Umami.
Okay. Oh.
A lot of flavors. The flavors here are
It's like
amazing.
layers. Imagine like how good Vietnamese food is and how good Latin food is, and it's like combining the best of both.
Wow. Let's try the vegan.
Oh yeah.
Let's try the vegan. Because you know I'm critical of that.
So this is fried ginger soy tofu and rice.
Here we go.
So maybe don't try a full piece of tofu at once.
You know I'm critical of tofu.
The flavor is there.
I'm real critical of tofu. But I want to show y'all this. This is it right here.
There it is.
Yeah. Look at that. Look at that. Let's try
The
it.
rice is good.
Not bad.
Not bad. It has some edamame in there.
Not bad. This is my first time ever saying, wow. It don't taste like what I think tofu would taste
Right,
like
right.
rubber.
Like rubber.
Like
I would say this is probably the most
wow.
underwhelming dish just because I like texture in the dish. So like this is just rice and tofu and scallions and some edamame. But like maybe add a sauce or like something crunchy. It would be perfect.
Yeah, that's true. True. Very true. I can see where you're going. Not bad though. Not bad.
Because it's like majority rice,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it's really good.
Yeah. Overall, this has been fantastic. I highly recommend this. Campus food?
Yeah.
If this is campus food,
This is the University of Chicago campus
I
food.
mean, yeah, right.
My campus did not have this food.
The smart kids.
Yeah.
Smart kids got this food.
Well, we're gonna enjoy the rest of our food, the feast that we ordered. But you know, thank you for watching.
Yeah. We're gonna keep smacking these French fries. The tofu is not bad, and this is crazy. On record, I'm saying this is good. But yeah, thanks for watching. 7 flavors.
See you next Monday.
We out.